Namaste, and let's go live on another bicycle live stream. It's Saturday, 21st of March at 6:45 a.m. Yeah, it's nice out here this morning, 23 degrees. And yeah, nice autumn morning, bit of a wind, but you can't have everything. So this morning's topic is, how does fear come from a lack of faith? I posted a little meme a couple of days ago that says, fear is a lack of faith. The two cannot coexist. That is, faith doesn't exist where there's fear, and fear doesn't exist where there's faith. So I want to talk about the connection between the two and how and why fear comes from a lack of faith. First, let's talk a little bit about fear, which about a year ago I talked about understanding fear, but I just want to cover some of the points there. That fear does not exist anywhere other than in our minds. It is our reaction to events occurring in our life and to thoughts that we are having in relation to those events and situations that we end up in. So we end up in certain situations. We have thoughts about those situations, stories that we tell ourselves, depending on our upbringing and our understanding and our wisdom and our connection with all things. We end up making conclusions about things that are happening in our life. And these conclusions can be helpful, or they can be a hindrance. So it will depend on our feelings of self-worth. It'll depend on our understanding of life, the meaning of life, etc. But one of the reactions, one of the thoughts, or one of the feelings that we can have coming from these thoughts is fear. We can feel in a certain situation hopeless, lost, not sure what to do, how to respond, how we're going to cope, what our future is going to be like. And this is something that happens to all of us and something that we can all relate to. So why does that have anything to do with faith or our lack of faith? Well, let's go back to when we were quite young, when we were in the body of a baby. And we learn at a very young age to have a faith in our carers to provide for us, to take care of very basic needs. Without even thinking about it, we have a subconscious trust that if we fall, we will be picked up, literally, by our parents or our carers. We have a belief that our needs will be met. It's not even something we consciously think of. It's something that we're born with on an unconscious level, this understanding that if something happens to us, our parents will protect us. That is faith. That is faith that our parents will be there for us. That is faith that the world that we might find as a child, as a baby, the world that we might find scary and we don't understand, that is a faith that there is somebody there to protect us. And often, for a lot of us, that is our most beautiful memory that we can connect to, a feeling that somebody is there to protect us, a feeling without which we start to panic. We start to feel like things could be out of control. Just wait till these cars go. And so this beautiful feeling is instilled in us from our youngest memories. This beautiful feeling of faith that those around us will look after us. Now, we haven't, not all of us have had that wonderful experience. Some of us are born into fear at a very young age. Our reaction to the environment that we're living in is understandably fearful because it does not feel to us safe, predictable, comforting. You know, it's missing those elements. So that can happen from a very young age and still ingrain a lifelong reaction of fear to things happening that most other people would just, you know, be able to cope with quite well. We might have an instinctual fearful reaction, but that's a slightly different thing. So back on track, at this very early age as a baby, this tapping into a faithfulness that things will be all right, that we are always being looked after, comes from a morning, Trish, thank you for watching. What are you saying there? My protector is fast asleep to me, listening with headphones. Now, it's very important to realise that the limitations of putting faith in our parents or our caregivers, anyone in this reality, putting faith that they will be there for us. As we start to grow up, we start to see that they are not perfect. We start to get a reality check that they do actually make mistakes and they aren't always there to protect us. So the question then is, if that's what we're seeing as we're growing up, where does this great hang on, cars everywhere today. Where is this great need to be protected coming from? It emanates originally, obviously, from a spiritual level, from knowing underneath all the confusion and pain and misunderstandings of this world that we are actually protected on a spiritual level. That is true faith. We mistakenly identify with people around us as being the ones that will be there for us. And we understandably feel let down and upset when we discover that they're as vulnerable as we are, as unpredictable and unreliable as we can be, and we can be put into a situation where we're feeling unable to cope, hence fear. Now, if we understand this connection between fear and faith, we can develop an appreciation that comes from observation and connection with wisdom. We can develop an appreciation of the way that everything in life works, but the things that we label good and the things that we label bad. We can step back from them and become, as I've spoken about before, the silent witness. We can observe. We can realize at a deep point within that things are happening perfectly. The things that we want to see happen and the things that we find horrendous are actually happening always for a reason. There is a perfection behind it. This is the development and the connection with faith. When we have this connection, when we have this understanding, we are finding the peace and the shelter that we so much need to find in our heart in order to step away from our fear. So we then have this wonderful connection with an understanding, a higher understanding, that we are actually looked after, bumpy. And we automatically shift from a state of fear into a state of peace, a state of understanding, of wisdom, of being able to relax into universal protection, knowing that we are always guided and protected and loved. And when we find that state which has always existed within us, when we connect in with that peace, that inner peace, and we get away from the turmoil of the mind, which is where the fear originates from our thoughts, then the next step from there, after we've connected with that ourselves, is to then be able to wish that for our loved ones and to be able to try and pass on this peace, which they will pick up energetically in any case, and therefore be an ambassador of compassion for others and help them when they are feeling fearful. So there is, on a personal level, there is someone that I love that has gone through, in the last couple of years, a lot of, what's the best description I can use here? Challenges. And there are times when I've been able to be there for her in a practical sense. I've actually been able to be there for her, calm her down, hold her close, and just reassure her. But there have been, especially in the last 18 months, I've not had that luxury. And so what I've been able to do is to project in the form of a prayer the peacefulness, the understanding that my friend is guided and protected and held in a state of universal love. And I put that prayer, that energy, I send that energy to her every day, every morning, in order to help her in these times when it's hard for her to help herself, and in these times when she feels afraid of the things that are happening to her that she doesn't understand. So Trish says, profound words, Harry. I always tell my kids to avoid judgment, as usually the events we consider the worst are actually the very event. Yes, we need it for growth and understanding. Yes, Trish, spot on. Very wise understanding, very wise. When we stop appointing blame to the universe or to other people for what we call the bad things in our life, we actually change the story around them, and we see the power of these events to allow us to grow. And that is a profound letting go in that process. It's like taking a deep breath and a sigh of relief. And I can feel it even now. It's just beautiful, So that's the point of this morning's live stream, is that fear can only come from a lack of faith. With all the things that are happening in the world at the moment, it can seem so out of control, and we can understandably end up reacting with thoughts that create feelings of fear. And these thoughts are coming from a mind that does not understand what the purpose of these events happening in the world are. So if we learn through meditation to separate from the mind and connect to the wisdom of the heart, we start to have faith that things are actually happening the way they should. We start to develop hindsight to see the times in our lives when things that we were struggling with proved to be for the highest good for all concerned in the long run. So I wish you well on your journey, and I wish you find and connect with the faith that brings the peace that dissolves the fear. You are loved always. Live vegan and save lives. Ahimsa.